So in a conversation that I had with the great Senator Judith Saffirini this morning, she said the secret of a good speech is to observe the 1 foot rule, and that is to speak only as long as you can stand on 1 foot. So I'm going to give that a shot. I think I need a mulligan here. Congratulations to my fellow award winners. Thank you, Greg, Julius, Judy, Ramona, Evan, and Mike for your generous remarks. As President Johnson once said, after a very fine introduction, my father would have enjoyed it and my mother would have believed it. Thank you, Jeanne, for always being there, and thank you to our wonderful family and our friends for being here tonight. This recognition by the university that I love is the single greatest honor of my life, and the university has been deeply rooted in my life every step of the way. My journey began 63 years ago when I boarded a train in Kansas City headed for Austin to study petroleum engineering. I was the first in my family to go to college. I had been awarded, as Mike said, I had been awarded a scholarship to Oklahoma University and had applied for one at Texas, but had not yet heard if I'd received it. Despite not knowing one person in the state, nor ever having been to Texas, something was drawing me here. I renounced the old U scholarship and came to UT. That turned out to be one of the greatest decisions of my life. But my start at the university was a bit rocky. My dad had given me a check for $300, which I promptly deposited. Then I wrote my first check ever for $200 for tuition and fees. The next week, I received a call from the registrar asking me to come by as soon as possible. With great anticipation, confident that I had received a scholarship, I bounded in the office. Can you imagine my dismay when the registrar said to me, "Son, your check bounced." What do I do now? So I came up with the money to begin my dream at UT. I was all in. At every point in my life at the university, someone was there believing in me. Dr. Kermit Brown, my first-year petroleum engineering professor, gave me my first job in college. For 3 years, I graded all homework and exams as his student assistant. I also worked summers in highway construction, shoveling asphalt. Parenthetically, I learned all about the properties of heavy distilled crude oil on the end of a shovel. I also lost 34 pounds that first summer. After graduation, I worked in the oil field as a petroleum engineer. When I returned to UT to attend law school, the director of the University of Texas Petroleum Extension Service showed confidence in me by engaging me to co-author a book on oil field terms and terminology. I'd never imagined writing a book of any kind, and I'm still grateful for that opportunity. It was also in law school that I was fortunate to have the greatest teacher in my life, Dean Page Keaton. I know many in this room, like me, venerated the dean. I'll always remember when we had to argue a mock appellate case in a course in brief writing in law school. The judge in my case was the dean himself, and I really wanted to impress him. As you know, in an argument, you always start with your strongest points. I was totally prepared on the first 4 points of my brief with strong legal authority, but the fifth was merely an extreme long shot, kind of an afterthought. With some trepidation, I stood before the dean and started my argument. Judge Keaton interrupted me at the very start and said, "Counselor, I understand your first 4 points. Please move on to the fifth." Well, on the verge of loss of bladder control, with very little to say on that point, I somehow muddled through it. I can still see that little smirk on the dean's face. That day, I learned the meaning of being fully prepared. Fast forward. I now had degrees in petroleum engineering and law, plus 11 years of experience as a lawyer and engineer. I'd also been saving money by selling women's wigs at night and on the weekends. Now, that's an interesting story for another time. Coach Royal famously said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." I felt well prepared to take the opportunity to test my luck and go into the oil business as an independent operator. So I moved to Midland 48 years ago to give it a go. I have been very fortunate and still remain active in the business, working in the Permian Basin and in Wyoming. Having lived in Fort Worth, Dallas, Big Spring, yes, Big Spring, Julius, Midland, and Houston, the only place that really felt like home was Austin. So Jeanne and I moved back 14 years ago to return home and to become more active in supporting our alma mater. So why do I feel so compelled to get back to the university? It's really simple. A huge part of my success is due to the superb education that I received here. Think about this for a moment. In terms of return on investment, my 7.5 years at the university cost me approximately $28,000 total. That's less than $4,000 a year. I've had a pretty good return on investment. Another reason is that it's partly selfish. I get back so much more than I give, whether it's to the university, a worthy cause, or an individual. For me, giving is much more than just writing a check. I want to make something of lasting worth. It's important to me to help make things happen by taking an active role and making the greatest impact I can. Mike Gillette recently asked me what I want my legacy to be. Well, I must admit that I haven't given it much thought, as I don't have any plans to depart. I initially responded with the standard but commendable, "He was a loyal and trusted friend who gave back and inspired others to do so and left the world a better place than he found it." But after further thought, I'd be happy if people just said, "He was all in." Thank you.